Stephen?
Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the country. And I want to say welcome to this Comcast Business and Masergy DE&I Get Control program. We've got a great program lined up for you. As Mike had mentioned, this is a trilogy. Part one of this is tonight. And part two, if you've got a pen and paper or you want to type some notes here, and we will follow up with you after this event with the registration links if you haven't registered for those yet. But part two is going to be on Wednesday, September the 14th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And that session is going to be get control of email, Outlook, and your smartphone. We've got a lot of screen time that has picked up, especially since the pandemic. You're not going to want to miss how to take advantage of using the tools that you have with Outlook and your smartphone and how to get more efficiency through your day. Part three of the trilogy will conclude on Wednesday, October the 5th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And this one's going to be get control of your virtual sales office. And I'll tell you what Mike Song is going to take you through in get control of your virtual sales office will take your virtual sales office to a whole different level, a whole different way of thinking about organizing your files, a whole different way of thinking about how you organize all of your sales and your customer interactions so that it makes better sense for you and you're able to refer to those materials and have more intelligent sales communications with your customers. So with that, welcome again to the Comcast Business and Masergy DE&I Get Control session. Today, it's get control of your virtual sales. You may have read in our invite to you that it's all about building relationships with your clients in a virtual environment. As the pandemic happened, most of you have gone through the travel restrictions, not being able to get face-to-face with your customers. And even when travel opened up, some folks don't feel comfortable getting back out face-to-face, and it makes that face-to-face engagement of sales a little bit more difficult. So today, you're in for a special treat with Mike Song as he takes you through how do you maximize virtual sales when you're not face-to-face with someone and you can't read those body cues, when you can't read the body language. How do you overcome that now and make virtual sales something that is going to be effective for you? So a little bit about Get Control. You heard Mike Song say that. He relates with all of us in that he's a minority-owned company. And Mike Song, if you didn't know, he is an award-winning time management blogger, and he's a best-selling author of a book called The Hamster Revolution for TQ. I won't tell you about TQ because I'll let him tell you about TQ and what that's all about and how you can identify for yourself what type of a techie person you are when it comes to looking at technology and tools and the usage of that. Now, Mike has reached millions of people through interviews with CNN, Fox, CBS, NPR, Good Morning America, and the Wall Street Journal. Get this, Mike has presented to over 20% of the Global 1000 and many of our Army, Air Force, and Marines. He provides over 150 productivity webinars a year, of which we are one of them this evening. And he did tell me he saved all of his energy for this one tonight. And so Mike is regarded as one of the world's best virtual presenters. I have taken several of Mike's courses over the last 2 to 3 years. I have learned new tips and tricks on every one of them on how to be effective and how to be better. So I'm speaking as a testimonial to our group tonight that you will gain a lot of valuable information on things that you can implement immediately after this session. So Mike and his team, they created the revolutionary TQ assessment tool. I'm not going to tell you any more about that. I'll let Mike go into that. It's a really neat tool. It's a really great assessment to understand a little bit more of your technology usage and how to get even more. Hey, if you've got any questions tonight throughout Mike's presentation, and by the way, fair notice, anyone is fair game for Mike to call on. He likes to keep it really engaged, but if you have any questions, please drop those in the chat section. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to answer those questions. And at the end of today, why don't you let everyone know some of the key points that you picked up that were really valuable and help someone else out? And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike Song. Mike, thank you for taking us through the first part of this incredible trilogy.
Well, I'm glad to be along on this journey with you, Stephen. It's just a pleasure working and coordinating with you. You're so professional, and so I'm very excited to be part of this as well. And we're going to kick in and get started. I can't thank you enough for that warm introduction. Today is all about helping you boost your virtual sales and your virtual sales skills. So we'd like to see you expand those skills by 25, 30%. Wherever you're at now, we'd love to elevate you, get you up so that you can be selling more effectively every day, having more virtual impact, having more confidence, saying the right things at the right time. It will really, I believe, help you increase your sales. And that's, as I said earlier, some of you came in after I said it when we were getting warmed up. I absolutely have been selling virtually for 30 years. All through the whole evolution of virtual sales, webinars, web contact meetings, even before we had it. So I've been here the whole way through and learning every step of the way, and I'll just share that with you all. So let's jump in and get going. If you have any comments, I would love it if everybody could click on the little orange arrow in the upper right-hand corner of your PC or Mac and just open up and make sure you can see where you can type in questions. We love hearing from you. And there's a handout that I recommend as well. And I'm always available to answer questions anytime. And I'll stay on a little bit when we get done as well. If you want a little one-on-one coaching, just let me know. I'm happy to do it. Well, today is all about boosting those virtual sales skills. And we're going to start with some tech-driven ideas. These are just fun little tech tips and tricks, mostly on the PC side of Outlook, but some of these things will carry over into the Mac world as well and Gmail as well. But I want to just, because I know that about 90% of you are on a PC, I'll show you just a few tech-driven ideas because I want to inspire you to really start thinking about technology as being a way to drive sales. Sometimes we separate those things, but using technology suddenly helped me increase sales dramatically. And so I tie those together. Then we're going to get to the real heart of it, connect and build relationships. How do you connect with people, get them leaning forward and looking forward to talking to you again? Everything dries up when that client doesn't want to talk to you again because it wasn't that dynamic or that exciting, or they didn't get perceived to get value from something. Well, we're going to show you how to get them, really eager to set up that next meeting today. And last but not least, it's so important to learn a little bit about someone. So when I met Stephen, he was just this great guy, part of this great program, working for Comcast. And then as we explored who we were, you know what? He told me he was a musician and that he plays in a band and does all this really cool stuff. And I'm a musician too. So telling your story, learning, as Stephen opened up a little bit about that, and it made it so much more fun just to chat. And that's why I look forward to seeing him each time on these sessions. So the concept of being tech-driven in sales is always looking for a way to let what I call the robots do the work. There are little features and functions within our phones. There are little features and functions that we can utilize on our PCs. And what that does is it saves your mental energy, your physical energy, your focus for those client-facing meetings. So what is this big idea of TQ that Stephen mentioned? It's that when you go into sales, everything's about the selling piece of it. But really, a part of it that drives the sales is the technology quotient that you have, your how good you are with technology. So I thought I would define this for you. A great salesperson is strategically learning about their technology all the time. Maybe it's the CRM that they're working with, where they're logging client data. Maybe it's how they're constructing their messages, going out to clients. And then you want to leverage it. You want to use this stuff in the real world. That's the only place where it matters. Practical, useful stuff. And then share these ideas across your team, your organization. The sharing of technology is one of the greatest things you can do because people tend to share right back with you. If you think about it, you've got your business knowledge, your business IQ, you've got your emotional intelligence, also very important in sales to be sensitive to understand what the client's thinking. And then you've got your tech quotient. I think the greatest way that you can be successful today is by combining your business knowledge, grow that, your emotional intelligence, keep growing that, learn how to read people, learn how to handle people, learn how to work on teams, and then boost your TQ with the stuff we're going to talk about today. And the people that can do all three of those are going to see their careers take off. So listen, we have a fun little tradition that if I show you a quick tip that is exciting and fun and useful for you, we will always type a W into the chat box, which stands for, oh, wow, that's kind of useful. And so I'm just going to jump in and share a couple of my favorite tips. And this is my first robot that I'm going to introduce to you here. This robot lives inside of Outlook for PC. It's more of a PC type of thing. And whenever someone says, hey, a client might say, hey, look, are you available to talk on this date? Sometimes it's 3 months in the future, so you toggle over there. So I just hit the Control plus G button like that. And if there's talking about October 5th, I'll type in 10 space 5, hit enter, and wow. Now I can see I've got something for Nestle. Oh, the other Comcast DEI program, the third one is on that date, so better not schedule over that. You can see how fast that I can zip around and find stuff really fast. Another one that I like a lot, again, these ones only work on the PC version of Outlook as far as I know, is to click into a single date, press the Control button, and then I can compare a bunch of dates because people are forever saying, Mike, can you make it on one of these 3 days? Here, which day are you available on? And you could kind of see here that I am available on, this date or that date. I can kind of move these around. So I can see all of these dates now and really compare my schedule. 12th, 22nd, 25th, 26th, these aren't connected dates. So that's another way that I kind of speed up and save time. You can add a second time zone by right-clicking on your date view and selecting change time zone. So if you happen to be working with people in a different time zone, this makes it a lot easier. All you have to do is check the box that says show a second time zone. But the most important tip that I have for you is one that will work on both for both Outlook, Mac, and users who are in on a PC, I believe, and that is to utilize the template feature a little bit more robustly. And your View Templates feature here allows you to create a template and then just with a click of a button, pop it right in to a meeting invitation. And this will also work for email as well. So this is a great technique and tool to use. So if I click on my template just like that, it creates a little what I call an objenda, your objective, your agenda, and it pops in maybe the Zoom room as well. And I love using this because it helps me keep track of helps me really keep track of what I'm doing, how I'm working with the client, and I use this a lot for email as well. So what you're seeing here is the structure of a great meeting. And here's the first most important insight for you. Focusing on a little bit about the way you structure things has a big impact. A little bit of structure goes a long, long way to driving sales. So I would encourage you to create one of these and utilize the template. Let me show you how easy it is to use this. So all you have to do is create the template. And I might want to move this around. I might want to put this at the bottom. Most of us have a perpetual meeting room. You might not know it if you have a Zoom or Teams. You should have a perpetual meeting room that you can utilize again and again. So I sometimes use that for sales, just as long as they don't back up to another sales meeting. So you create the objective and the agenda. And the way that I like to use this, get the spacing how you like it here. Get the spacing how you like it. And there we go. Now I like the way that looks. So then you just basically are going to highlight it like that and right click to copy it. And then click the little plus template button on the bottom and just copy and paste that template in. You can see I've just copied it in there. And then I'm just going to name it Agenda. And just like that, I've saved a template. Look at that. Whoa, what? I love the reactions I'm getting on the chat box. A lot of people are typing that W in there. That's fantastic, okay? So the value of this is that you can start to create really targeted messages. And the way that you pop them in there, just again, you just click on them like this. Now, what's this I just clicked in here? This is a proposal follow-up meeting. So what I really want you to do is when you're talking to a client and they would like to see a proposal, they would like to follow up with you, they would like to meet with you again, I want you to really think about what having this working for you, okay? So just imagine that that's the case, right? We're talking to a customer and they say, look, I really like to meet with you again. And with one click of the button, you say, great, when would you like to meet? Well, they tell you that they would like to meet on one of these 3 dates. So of course, you go into your Outlook calendar, you click on those 3 dates, 26th to the 30th. Now you can see what the best time for you is. Again, this allows you to listen to the customer and very quickly ascertain what works for you. Now you can hustle in terms of just letting them feel really super comfortable that you're going to do this follow-up. Yvette said you're working with the Outlook web version of it, and it does work. The templates do work on the browser-based version of Outlook. So you bet, absolutely. And if you are on a Mac, then it would also work on the browser-based version of Outlook. I love that you're using that version of that. I think it's a very, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. That is, it might be Levette if I'm looking at it correctly. So that works great. But you can see that. So let's go through that sequence, that selling sequence. Client expresses an interest. You pop open, you know, on a bunch of different dates. You can quickly ascertain those dates. You settle on, you know, September 1st or whatever it might be. You open up that meeting invitation and you click on your View Templates button, and you just pop in there, you know, that the template that your follow-up meeting template. Now you've got the structure in there. Of course, you might tweak it a little. I'd definitely put in a personalization like, you know, hi Ann, something like that. And then now you're just concentrating on popping it in. You already determined the time you wanted to meet. You've got that all done. So you're in really, really great shape. So the cool thing about this is you pop the title in there, and as the client is wrapping up with you, you send them this invitation. It hits their inbox, you know, right away, and they can accept that meeting. So what does that do? It makes you seem like you really have your act together, but you don't have to work harder, and you can still concentrate on listening to the client, wrapping it up. So you know how it is. You get them excited about something, that energy level is up at the end of the meeting, and then every second, every minute after they leave that meeting, they're getting pulled in a million different directions. That's why I love this concept, and I love the leapfrogging concept. So here's what I will always say to customers too. This is a big part of what I do when I'm working with clients. I do this strategy called leapfrogging. And so my leapfrogging strategy here is, hey, here's my verbiage. Feel free to steal it. To save time, could we put a dot on the calendar to reconnect? I just hate to waste your time. So you always put it in terms of the not wanting to waste the client's time. Everybody hates having their time wasted. So this is a great way to reconnect. You always have to set up the next meeting at the end of the meeting. And there's an awkward moment where it doesn't seem like the right thing to say. I see it with every sales team that I coach. I'll say, it's going to be awkward. And you're going to be like, well, I can just send them some dates. You are pushing that next meeting out, and it will take more time for both of you. So that's my virtual sales sequence for you. Zoom around so you pick the dates fast. Embed an objective and agenda in there automatically so you don't have to think about it. Leapfrog to the next meeting event, and that way you're using the technology to stay very focused and relaxed and smooth. And at the end of this sequence, the client gets the meeting invite when they're the most excited, so they hit accept, and you have a great little agenda inside there that will also allow them to understand that they can just you'll seem like you have your act together. Wow, that came out really fast, and this has all the stuff we talked about in it, and you're going to be, I think, looking great from a sales perspective. All right. If you guys are finding this useful, type a U into the question box right now. Type a U in there if you thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe that helped you think about sales a little bit differently. I'd love to see if this is useful for you folks. And if it's not, I can move on to other things. But I'm seeing a lot of U's go by. All right, let's keep working on this, okay? Let me jump into my next section here. How are we going to connect? How are we going to build those relationships? What are we going to do to really become more effective? That's what we'll talk about next, okay? Connecting, building, over time, gaining that momentum. And by the way, if you have a sales challenge of any kind, you want to type it in there, I may or may not have an answer for you, but I'm happy to try to help solve any sales problem you might have. So first and foremost, I want to give you some things to stop and a replacement strategy to start. Just kind of like a fun stop that, start this. So the first thing that I do before I go into my stopping and starting is I like to introduce to you my perspective on these are the kind of 3 things that can really help a person advance in terms of making their virtual meetings engaging, fun, and effective. So I call it my LEAP. This is a really silly acronym. You don't have to remember it, but the first thing is to understand that there's a likability factor attached to each of us. And it's varies based upon, you know, who you are. It's based on a lot of factors, but it's controllable. And the more likable you can be, the more engaging and fun you can be, the more a person will want to schedule the next meeting with you or evaluate your proposal. So likability is important. We're going to talk about things that boost likability. And then what I call the excellent access to that client's brain and to having that client be there. So that leapfrogging tip that I showed you, hey, would you mind if we put a dot on the calendar? Just, I'm sure you'll take a look at this proposal and have a few questions. Hate to waste your time. That's getting you better access to that client and making you more likable too. But excellent access has two meanings for me. It's also when you're in the meeting, are they focusing, right? Because this will be good for you if they're focusing. They'll ask questions. That's great. And powerful presentations. So the L for likability, EA for excellent access, and the P for powerful presentations. That's the formula where you have somebody who's really going to excel at sales. And I'm going to help you work on all three of these things today. So the first thing that I want to start up with is, I like this. Livette says, be bold and put date and times for the next steps on the sales process. I like that. I like what you're saying there. I feel I'm pressuring people. Yeah, I think that that is a great point. And I always think, oh, wow, we're pressuring them to set up the next meeting. They love it. This is 95% effective, that leapfrogging strategy. We do it, when we hire a rep and they don't do it, we kind of do jump and say, look, we asked you to do this 10 times. Why didn't you do it? Oh, it felt a little awkward. If the client wants to see a proposal, there should be some type of follow-up. So what I find is 96% of the time, the client says, yeah, I'd like to put that dot on the calendar so I don't have to go back and forth scheduling the next meeting. You guys are easy to work with. I often hear that. So let's make sure you don't have any startup glitches. This is some really great stuff here that I think is super important. So stop the startup glitches, because then you start off on this sort of offbeat, slightly awkward first step. We don't want that. We want you to be brimming with confidence. We want you to be feeling that you're in that groove. So have a little pre-meeting checklist that you work off of. One, if it's important, I refresh, I shut down and restart my PC. Computers have fewer problems when you shut down and restart them. It's a great strategy. Gives you confidence that you haven't built up too much, short-term memory being consumed by having too many windows open. Close anything that uses up a lot of brain power for that laptop. Run a speed test. This is a great confidence builder, and it's something that's actually kind of important to know. So every time I've got an important meeting, I pop in, I run my speed test. I just type the phrase speed type test into any browser, and you get a run speed test button. And that's where you can see that my Wi-Fi, for me, from my perspective, that's screaming. That is Comcast Wi-Fi for business. I am a customer of Comcast Business and now Mastergy too, which I love. This is great. So you can kind of see there that now I feel great. Now, if I'm in a customer location and they don't have your fantastic internet, then I've been in rooms where it's been like one, I get one up. It's just crazy what you can run into. And there's where you want to make those adjustments. You guys know bandwidth, though. I mean, you guys that's your business. I always do some research. Now, another thing that I always do is open up a client's, a web page of the client. You see, I've had this open for Comcast Business and Comcast and Mastergy. And so the reason why I always have that open is because you have to establish with clients very, very quickly, establish with clients very fast that you actually are interested and focused on them. And it's harder to do in a virtual world. So having their web page open shows them that you did a little pre-meeting research, and therefore it will help you get off on the right foot with them. So have that open, and just, as you switch stuff around, show that, oh yeah, I was on your site, I was looking through, I really want to understand your business. That's music to my ears when a vendor does that, and it's rare. So just remember, do some research, a quick Google of the client location. That's a smart move to make. And then finally, do that sound check, okay? Now, if you're on one-on-one with a client, obviously you don't do a sound check. But if there are multiple decision makers, say 3 or 4 or 6 people on a call where you're presenting what you do, that's when you want to say, hey, look, everybody, if you wouldn't mind, just type a Y if you can see me on the webcam, see my computer on the screen, and if you can hear me clearly. I definitely want to make sure that we're broadcasting on a nice clear channel, something like that. And they'll type it in there. They'll type that Y in there. Oh yeah, I can hear you, Mike. You're coming through clear. A lot of people did it on this call earlier before most of you joined. So what does that do? Let's really get into psychology of that, okay? One, from a psychological point of view, you start to feel more confident. Everything's working. I've seen salespeople go, "Can you see my screen? Can you hear me?" And it's terrible because they're doing that mid presentation. If you get that done before the presentation, now you're confident. You're not going to ask, "Can you see my screen?" That type of thing. The second thing that this does, which is a really, really difficult thing to do quickly in most virtual meetings, is it gets that prospective client to help you with some small little task. Now, the psychology of that is once you help somebody, you feel slightly invested in them and you're more likely to help them again. Maybe they're going to be more participative in this call that you're with. Maybe they'll pay a little more attention, or maybe they'll entertain a proposal when they might not have. And suddenly they realize they do need what you do. So remember, there's always a psychological reason for the stuff that's in this presentation. It's how I've, developed and increased sales over time. So use that sound check and technique. It works really great for getting a larger group of people on board. Hey, and it makes them think, hey, this person really wants to make sure that I'm connected. They care about me. Now, remember that your first statement's your most important statement. And it's very common to see a person make an initial statement that isn't a very clear, the WIFM, what's in it for me, benefit statement to the client. They kind of amble in, they talk about what they do. So you really want to think about anything else besides something that the client will make the client more interested in hearing the rest of your presentation. Because first 20 seconds that you begin to speak, everybody's deciding, is this going to be interesting? Does this person seem knowledgeable? Is this going to be a waste of my time or a really good use of my time? 20 seconds. So you want to start with something that is powerful, that's important. You might have noticed that when I kicked this whole thing off, I started to talk a lot about this is going to help you sell. This is going to help your career. This is going to increase your income. Because with salespeople, that's usually a point of the what's in it for you. And it's important for me. And by the way, I love helping salespeople sell. So now, here's a little bit on the setup. I would recommend having an arrival slide that paints your organization in a positive light. If it's a dull, boring PowerPoint slide, well, that's even better than just having that generic screen before you start a desktop share. So if multiple people are coming in, have something that looks impressive up. In most web tools, you can pause that so you can still keep working. And that web page that I mentioned from doing your research. And then what I would recommend is then turn off your slide and really just see if you can't start with a little bit of webcam only for the first few minutes, first 3 or 4 minutes, webcam only, then start your presentation again on that slide. That's just how I think you start with a bang. The most important thing is to raise the stakes of the value of what you're bringing. Make it valuable for them, and try to think of the most value that you can possibly deliver realistically. And so some people will start off by saying, our product will help you save time. That's not what that a lot of people that sounds great. We all want to save time, but if you can say things more specifically, my product's going to help save your salespeople time. It's going to reduce their admin burden, help them get organized so they can increase face time with clients. And I know that's a big priority for your organization, right? I raised the stakes. So that is critical. Another thing, if you have multiple people on the call and they're all talking at the same time, I call that the you go syndrome. And they'll say, you go, no, you go, you go, no, you go. Because when we both start talking at the same time, we stop and let the other person talk. And they stop and let us talk. 4 seconds go by, and then we both figure the other person's not going to talk. So then we both start talking again. It's a double awkward moment. And here's the problem. It's not a big deal. It happens all the time. But what I want you to be thinking is this. If you're on with a customer, let's say there's 3 or 4 people making a joint decision, and they have one of these, what I call Hugos. Hugo, no Hugo. Hugo, no Hugo. That's why I call them Hugos. They're not going to be as likely to chime in the next time. See what I'm saying? So you want to really make sure that whatever you're doing with them it creates an environment where everybody can talk at once. And there's only one really way that you can do that, is to maybe back off a little bit on the audio piece of it and really ask people to do fun things with the chat. Hey, everybody, if you see something useful, if you could just type a U into the chat box. If you want me to clarify something, type a C. Now they have a way of communicating, because a lot of times people have a objection that they've come up with, right? And you really want them to voice that objection, because that gives you a chance to address it versus them thinking, oh, they don't have that service, they don't have that feature, they're not talking about it. So that's something I highly recommend. And it's very important to use names. So you might say, hey, Jan, Kate had a great question in the chat box. Thank you so much for all your information. So use people's names when they comment in the chat box. Bring those chat messages out to the group. It's really powerful. Like we did before, like we did this a little bit earlier with when Kate said, wow, that was great, Kate. Encourage that chat. Now, every time you have a meeting, every time, click the chat button, type welcome, and exclamation point. Welcome them in. So this is all about first impressions, right? No glitches. Welcome them in with the chat. Do the sound check so you're interacting. Get rid of the problems. Show them that you did your research. Now you're in a different place. In 5 minutes, you're in a different place. You can pop a link into the chat. That's another way to create a more experiential thing. Let's say you do want people to visit a particular location. You can copy and paste a link right into the chat. And that is a powerful way that you can get people interacting with each other. You can do an icebreaker or surveys if it's an internal meeting. Sometimes a survey is great too. Hey, type U if you found this useful is a survey. And so you can get a lot of great information from people that way. I'd also recommend having a strategy for not getting interrupted. And at the same time, I'd like to make the point that when this guy does get interrupted, I think it's actually we like him more. So just remember, your clients may like you more if your dog is barking and you're like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, I'm really sorry. They may have a dog that barks too. So just remember, there's a golden lining around this. I love this family. I want to go out to dinner with this family and my family. But that has to be, if that doesn't make you smile, then there might not be, then make sure you got that pulse, because that just is just pure magical things. So mistakes are good. If you do something that is a little embarrassing, no problem. Everyone can relate to you more as a human being. You have not lost this deal at all. Number two, having a do not disturb strategy is smart. Go around the room and just lock down anything that dings, buzzes, rings. Lock the door if you can, that type of thing. I do a text alert to my family. It's my favorite thing. I just text them all a little message here. I can actually show you what I do here. It's kind of cool. I can, let me just see here. Okay. All right. So here's what I do. So let's pretend this is going to I'll actually send to my family here. I'm just trying to see if they send anything embarrassing here. Nope. Okay, good. All right, let me bring my phone in here. I'm going to show you my phone just to make this seem kind of real. There you go. There's my phone. Okay, my family's on Block Island. They're on vacation. They left me alone because I had too many webinars to do. This is the first time and only time that'll happen. But I just type in INW, and I've programmed this to print out. In webinar, do not disturb until 6:30 p.m. That type of thing. Now I won't send this because they're not here, but that's how I do my quick alert. And by the way, this is a very, very easy thing to program into your phones. Every one of those phones work that way. So I'm going to show you how that they work. So if you want to know how to do that on an iPhone, on the left, that's how you do it on an iPhone. And if you want to learn how to do it on a Samsung Galaxy, that's the pathway to do it on a Samsung Galaxy. How can you grab that? Well, it's in the handout, but you can also just take a picture of that with your phone right now. I'll just pause for like 20 seconds to let you take a picture of that. And people are asking me a question that I get asked a lot. How did you get your phone to show up on the screen? Well, this is another great tool that I use. Now, I always mention this, okay? Remember this, what I'm saying here as you guys are taking your picture. I can tell you how I do it, but you should ask if you have IT people that oversee your particular setup. If you're home alone and your computer is your computer and your business is your business, you're not going to have a problem. But if you're in a larger organization that has IT security, they might say, oh, don't set that up, okay? You guys know the web. You guys are so tech savvy because of what you do. But this app is called A Power Mirror, and I've been using it for years, and I really have not seen I've seen very few people attempt to utilize this app. So you can kind of see that I'm showing you my phone, and I'll spell it out for you. A power mirror, but they make it all one word. And what this does with a little practice is you can, and what I like about this actually from a security point of view is I use the tether option. So I've tethered through a USB cable into my computer, so it can't be hacked from a Wi-Fi perspective. And this is a way to rivet a client. Let's say, for example, you have some kind of app that you want to show them, or something they can access from their phone. Think of a reason why, because this will pull people's in. They'll be very interested in what you're doing. So thank you, Livette, for asking that great question. Okay, now let's get into the power of your presentations here. Nothing hurts your presentation more than the read ahead syndrome. And this is one of the easiest fixes in the world. So my point is this: if you put all your bullet points up on the screen, they read ahead, they tune out, and they say, I know what you're going to say. So it's incredibly important. Flying in, bullet points, one at a time, keeps them leaning forward, looking forward to what you're going to say, listening, focused in, puts you in control, makes you seem like you're more authoritative in a sense, more confident. Always walk your bullets in one at a time, and try not to have more than 4, maybe 5 at a time. So here we go. Just in case anybody hasn't done this, you just highlight the bullet points. I'll delete these bullet points. These are the most deleted bullet points in history because animations, because I do them over and over again. Highlight them, click animations. Fly in is really the most versatile animation, but there's a lot of great ones. Don't do too much goofy stuff. And then from here, they'll still all fly in together because it says 1, 1, 1, 1. They'll all fly in with the first click. Just make sure you go over here and click on click. And now you're going to have those come in. And if you have anything like this in there, just try to always make sure that they're facing your bullet points. You don't want to have this guy here facing away. Just a little design. If you're ever designing slides, I see this once in a while and I go, it's really interesting. And but faces, they bring a lot of emotion in. What sometimes though is hard when you're doing something like you guys do, where there's a lot of technical information, is how much data can a person absorb? It's a really good question to ask. How many stats will they absorb? And you may want to give them a lot so you feel that confidence. But just keep in mind that people's eyes do glaze over with too much data, too much information. So I want to really emphasize this. You may have a particular competitive advantage that you want to stress. And if you gamify that, and this can be done without PowerPoint slides at all, the gamification of your key point, if you can find a way to do that, it's pretty powerful. So for example, you can ask you can ask them to guess a particular statistic. What do you think our up down rate is in this particular region? Do you guys know what it is? If they don't know what it is, that's great. Just try to guess it. They venture a guess. You're asking questions that's boosting your likability. And if you do it in a fun, gentle way, just give it a guess. No, it's actually this. They're going to remember that stat. And it will boost your likability and they get interested. So just remember, asking questions better than making statements to people in sales situations. So let's do it right now. Let's give you a feel for it right now, because we're going to go into a little section on webcamming. And so, yeah, slide design is so important, says the marketing person. Kate, that's what you do, your marketing? Kate said, made that statement. It's great. So here we go. Now, we did a study of about 1,000 professionals about a year ago, and we asked them, do you feel reluctant or nervous to actually turn on your webcam? In other words, you might turn it on, but you're kind of reluctant, or you kind of wish you didn't have to. That's normal. That's a normal feeling. But go ahead and try to guess in the chat area, in the question area, what percentage of people answered that question yes? What do you think it is? Let's see. Whoever gets the closest will be our winner. You get a free imaginary iPad, tablet, 17, Samsung tablet, whatever it might be. Okay, so Jan says 95 and Renee says 75. Kate says 47%. We're getting lots of great guesses here. The survey said 89%. So I think our winner was Jan. I think you were the closest. It just makes it fun. And it doesn't have to be as goofy as this if you've got a serious client on there, high level person. I know you guys work with some high level folks. However, I do think this is a great way to draw people in, have them guess it, and do this little Family Feud example. It's a more powerful presentation tip. Now, why do so many people feel reluctant to turn on their webcam? Well, I'm going to guess that a lot of us might not feel we look our best at a particular time. And that's, again, totally understandable. Don't have to turn your webcam on. But in a client facing situation, don't you think it 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 creates a deeper bond to see someone talking to you on a webcam versus nothing? And so I just want to give you a little bit of advice on webcamming. And I just caught this sales group here on a sales thing on LinkedIn. It was like a video of them talking about selling. So here we go. The first person here has light coming from behind. That's the number one mistake for lighting. Backlighting washes you out in front and darkens your face and makes you seem almost a little sinister, as you can see in this picture of a real person doing it. Then you have the person that has stuff in the background that nobody knows what it is. You're looking at it, you're kind of like going, I can't figure out what that is behind this person. It's really distracting. I still to this day don't know if these are Post-it notes or some type of modern art. I can't figure it out. Then you have the guy who's not centered and is looking sort of off to the side. You really want to be centered up. I'm in lots and lots of meetings with people, lots of vendors, and I'm looking at the side of their face. It's just strange. It doesn't feel right. So remember, you want to be centered and no glare behind you from a whiteboard. Outdoors, of course, can be risky because the UPS truck or whatever is backing up, making that noise. Here's one of the number one things, though, that I think makes people feel a little awkward. You're looking down at the customer here. And if you just have your normal face on, you're gonna kind of look a little bit like disinterested. And as you can see in the expression on this person's face, it kind of seems like there's almost a little bit of negativity there. And it's just because you're looking down at somebody. I mean, the phrase looking down at someone means you feel negatively towards them. So you want to raise your laptop so you're looking eye to eye. You don't want them to be looking, you want to be looking into their eyes. And the last person here is not giving us a single clue as to who he is. And he might be the greatest guy ever, but we will not learn that from seeing this. So our brains and your customers' brains are searching every person they meet. They're searching for some context. Our brains like to figure people out. That's probably for a lot of reasons. We like to figure people out so that we understand who we're talking to in our subconscious world that we're in. So just remember that even a tiny bit of context can help. So you can have more virtual impact, and here's how you do it. One, I've done 100,000 surveys. There is not a person in the world that wants to look up my nose, not one. So I always position my camera at eye level, and I use the pre-meeting in Teams or WebEx or Zoom. I use the pre-meeting view to really make sure I'm kind of lined up with my camera and feeling good about where I'm at. The next thing is in preview mode. Watch the difference now of this versus this, right? You can just feel the strength, the leverage that you're going to get. The virtual impact is tripling here from here to here. It looks right. You can put something contextual in the background. There's my dog, Dylan. There's a picture of me and my wife. So you can really see here that this is all about, when I'm doing this, it's kind of intentionally. You know what I also love about doing this? I like it when I see this stuff in my webcam and I know that that's what's there. In other words, I like seeing my dog too. So it really works out quite well. And of course, you want to always be looking for these clues wherever you go. This is a clue. This is a clue. Notice that books are impossible to read like this, a little bit easier to read like that. And you want to frame it up. You want to be centered. Centered. What is it? Think about what that means. I'm telling you to center yourself carefully on your webcam. A lot of people don't. The phrase, that person was really centered, actually means that person has their act together. And so that's what you want your customers to be thinking about you. I've got my head in the top half of that screen. You never want your chin at the bottom of the screen here behind the start meeting button. No, no, no. So frame up eye to eye. But most importantly, use front lights. This is the investment that I made in front lights. And I'm going to show you my front lights because I think this is really important. When I visually saw this and started showing it to people, they're like, oh, you always were saying front lights. Now I get it. Okay. I'm facing out the window. Okay. And let me see if we can find my my app here. Give me 1 second. after my A Power Mirror app might have shut down. Oh, it's behind something. It just got caught behind something. Okay. So now you're in my world here. I'm sorry the screen's not a little bit bigger, but I guess you can see you're in my world. So if you want to be, if you have a lot of information that you need to print, having a dual monitor system, highly recommend it. I put all my controls over there so I can see them and I can really monitor the chat. This is the chat that I was monitoring. It's really normally over here, but I had to find my phone. So you want to be able to monitor chat. Someone says something and asks a question, you don't want to miss it. And that you can do that. You can detach the chat in WebEx, Teams, Zoom. You can usually detach the chat. So I always recommend detach the chat, type welcome in there, okay? But then as you come in here, on the left-hand side, I've got these lamps. They're really like very cool lamps. They have these multiple settings. So they go from very white to a little more colored. And what I found is that depending on the lighting outside, I vary that between a more reddish hue that kind of looks more vibrant or a more whitish hue. And that gives you the chance to adjust lighting. And this is just the brightness from low to high. And notice it's kind of a big lamp, so it really casts light nicely. And I don't have one, I have two. And that fills in all the shadows and the gaps and gives a more vibrant look. Hey, you want to look vibrant, okay? And I'm not saying, hey, you gotta, spend a lot of money on lamps and stuff like that. But I am saying you want to be looking out the window. You want to have ambient light and light directed at you. Lighting, just try to think about any TV show, anything you watch. Lighting, right? Everybody's super well lit. That's important. I always have my Post-it notes right over there and my pen, sitting right here. And that allows me to jot something important. So I make sure I hit that key point for the client if I don't have stuff in there. So there you go. So what's the balance of personal clues with distracting background stuff? Yeah. So I do think you should have a personal clue in there if you can, if it works. I know some people just don't have the ability to have the right back frame for that. And I think that virtual backgrounds are fine if you just don't have a good situation. But if you think about it, it always looks a little weird when someone has a virtual background. You see like little blips and glips where it comes through. I don't know. I would recommend having a virtual background if you need one. Having a virtual background if you have just don't have a good place that's conducive for it. But showing the real you makes a lot of sense, and putting up some pictures in the background, a family or a pet, or maybe a sport that you play, and so on. I think that's really smart because it starts to give people context. Okay, running out of time. This is great questions. So I would say try to improve your background. Maybe a mix, like this is kind of a mix of professional. I just had this standee from a trade show, and I said, why don't I just pop this up? And then over here, pictures, a couple personal pictures and things. And the number one thing that's hard for people to do is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to smile and look right into the camera lens, really as if I'm talking to a long lost best friend. Hey, how you doing, Carl? In fact, that's the genesis of my tone, is bumping into a long lost old friend that I'm happy to see, surprised to see. Hey, how are you doing? That's how I would articulate the tone that I always try to go for in sales calls. And by the way, I have a really sophisticated audio setup here. I'm a musician like Steven. I wouldn't go for anything this elaborate, but definitely do a check. Either record yourself in a web meeting or have another person listen to you in a web meeting. You really want to make sure that your sound isn't too tinny or thin, right? Because that is part of how people build the perception of you. If the sound is tinny and crumbly, if you're popping out your microphone, which I do because I just talk so loud, but you want to make sure it's very smooth. Audio really matters. It persuades people. It's more important. It's not given enough of value. So I hear a lot of people in big corporate jobs. I see a lot of pundits on TV. They have terrible sound. Great image, terrible sound, and it detracts. So we're almost done. We're in the home stretch. We've talked about some tech-driven ideas. I hope I've helped you think about how you might connect and build relationships, close more deals, build more relationships, get more referrals. All of this happens when people look forward to seeing you. And all of the things that we talked about, getting rid of those tech glitches, all of that creates the environment of confidence. And confidence to me is so apparent. You want to be confident. And when so many things can go wrong with a web meeting, that it's incredibly important to really work on it, which is why I think it's so cool that you're here. And I hope it helps you sell more, because nothing makes me happier than helping somebody. Obviously some things are more important and meaningful to me than helping people sell more, but it's one of my favorite things to do. Let's put it that way, is to be here with you right now. So, your story. I think we've got to remember that human brain loves context. Now, I was explaining this to someone and they said, well, what about a person that just wants to get down to business? And I think you guys are probably good enough at judging when a person just wants to get down to business. But I'm going to tell you, look, in my whole life, I can remember very, very few people that didn't like to talk about something that was meaningful to them. And if you find the thing that's meaningful to them and you talk to them about it, they're in heaven. They love it. So I do think it's important to try to look at your customer, what's their personal story, and so on. And I think that's powerful. But there's another kind of story too I want to talk to you about just really briefly, and that is the story of technology. Okay, so in this slide, if you're trying to tell the story of something and you've got screenshots in it, and you're saying to yourself, I don't know if this is quite getting across the steps this client needs to take to do something. Just remember that in PowerPoint, there's a marvelous feature called screen recording. So it allows you to make a video extremely quickly to instruct a customer. So if a customer's having a problem doing something, maybe they're on your website trying to navigate something, just remember you can open up a PowerPoint slide, click Insert and Screen Recording, designate the area that you want to record, and hit record. It's very, very quick, right? So I might go here, I might say, hey, hi, Dave. I know you were trying to navigate the site. Don't forget, you got to log in first. I think you noticed that there was some $signs, and all of that's free for you and your people. They just have to log in. And these are the videos that we would recommend that you go to. The first 4 up here are the 4 power classes. And I highly recommend you go to all those, okay? So you can kind of see, then you put your mouse up here, click the stop button, and that's created the video within PowerPoint. So I mentioned that, and the video here, see, this is the video. Now that beats a screenshot every day for me. And you can even right click on this and save this as an MP4 file. And it will play within the slide too. If you just hit the play button, this plays. So you can see there I am going through and doing the stuff that I just logging into the website and so on. So that's part of telling your story using video, really good idea. But more than anything, I think you should tell a story or two about yourself, but in a snippet format, I think is probably better, because we are losing a lot. As Stephen said at the outset, we lose a lot of that interpersonal, nonverbal cues. All of that disappears. So a short story or snippet into your life, little glimpse, allows the client to sort of position you with your family. Okay, they have a family, I have a family. Now you're part of a group of people that have a common bound. He has a dog, you have a dog. All of a sudden, all the differences that you might have with this person, they might be from a completely different background, melt away, and you're talking about your dogs. So think about 3 things about yourself that what might be powerful to tell somebody that story. A friend of mine is the first person from her family to go to college. I still remember that. She told me that 10 years ago. She said, I was the first one in my family to go to college. How long did it take to say that? But packed into that statement is 1,000 days of effort and understanding that person's going to come through for me if I need something from her. So these are the kinds of stories. This is my daughter. The night we celebrated her graduation from college, and she also got a job all on her own. She graduated from the UConn School of Nursing and got a job at Mass General Hospital in Boston. So this is one of the best nights of my life, and this is one of my favorite pictures. There's also a career story that's going on. Remember how I said, I found the standee and I said, why don't I put it up behind me during the pandemic? And I've left it there. Why? Because I think it's really cool. That's my greatest career achievement, was writing this book. Just hit it at the right time. And for me, it meant the world to me, for my self-esteem, to have a book that people liked and helped other people. That was my dream come true. And just happened to name it right so that it was a name that people had trouble forgetting, Hamster Revolution. And you're going to have an opportunity to get a free copy of the book. So as you leave this webinar today, watch for a pop-up that allows you to get a free copy of that book. And then there's an organization-wide story. And it's really important for people to know, hey, we were founded here. We've been in business. We have a fantastic client base, including this and that company. Sometimes we don't tell our organization story, and people are craving that context as well. So I hope you tell some stories that you might not normally tell, or maybe if you've been saying the same kinds of things, try to think of something that might give a person a different look into who you are, what your career is doing, because people want to help you once they kind of know the journey that you're on. And that's always a beautiful thing. And you can create those connections. And I know it's going to ultimately help you sell more. So I see that we're out of time, but I always stay on afterwards for questions and answers. I will launch a poll right now. I'm just going to launch one poll. Actually, I'm going to launch two. Here's first one is, hey, do you think this improved your virtual selling skills? And if so, by how much? So there's the first poll question. Yeah, dogs are wonderful, aren't they? All right, everyone's voting away. I'm going to give it another 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Close it up. Share the results. Wow, 67% of you said you increased your sales skills, virtual sales skills by 40%. I love it. I love that. And the last thing, rate me. Rate my webinar. Rate this webinar. Was it excellent, good, average, fair, poor? What'd you think of it? And we also have, if you want to take an assessment of a tech assessment, we call it the TCAT. You can do that. The code for it is Comcast TQ. And Lisa, is it all lowercase? Oh, and now I want to turn it over to Jess Breyer, but I'll share the results for you. And it was 100% excellent. Yay! That sounds like we did okay. Jess, how you doing?
I'm amazing. How are you? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm not on camera, but I assure you my virtual presence is up to your standards and I do look vibrant. There are so many takeaways. Everyone put an I in the chat if you think this was impactful. I personally had no idea that you can make templates in Outlook, so I'm definitely stealing that. I'm also stealing your PC refresh trick. I literally had my PC restart in the middle of a meeting yesterday with no warning. It was horrible. So thank you for that. Your Hugo syndrome, I feel like that happens on every group call. So such a collaborative idea for folks to use a chat box. So I will steal that as well.
You want to move the car so they can park in the driveway?
Rita had syndrome. That makes me crazy as well. So Mike, you're just absolutely exceptional. So now all of our attendees, this session was recorded. So you all can go back, look at the recording and master these skills. Now, this is just part 1 of a 3-part series. Part 2 is on September 14th, where we will learn how to get control of your email, Outlook, and smartphone. I know that I need that. I cannot wait, but y'all have to register. So we hope that we can get a dot on your calendar for September 14th. And on behalf of Comcast Indirect DE&I team, we would like to thank you so much for joining us today. We hope it was beneficial and we cannot wait to see you next month. Mike, it was a pleasure. You are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. I love working with all of you folks. Thanks for all the kind comments. And Jess, we'll be seeing you real soon in next month. And thanks to you and everybody there, Stephen and the whole crew.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, take care. I'm going to turn my webcam off. I will stay on if you have a question or two for a couple minutes. If there's no questions, I'll jump off. Thank you so much for that wonderful rating, and we'll see you soon.